The massive halls of Veltrax Prime, a world known for hosting the most prestigious engineering competitions in the galaxy, buzzed with excitement. The Galactic Engineering Summit was an event where the greatest minds from hundreds of starfaring civilizations gathered to showcase their latest advancements in technology. Towering holograms displayed the names of powerful species, each one boasting centuries, if not millennia, of experience in space. Grand warships, sleek exploration cruisers, and advanced research vessels stood on display, their hulls gleaming under the artificial sunlight of the colossal dome. The air itself seemed charged with energy as alien engineers boasted about their latest designs, exchanging smug glances at their rivals. Yet, despite all the grandeur, a wave of amusement rippled through the crowd when a small, unassuming human engineer walked onto the stage. Dr. Ethan Carter, representing Earth, carried himself with quiet confidence, but it was clear that he was an outsider among legends. Unlike the alien engineers, who arrived in elaborate robes and advanced exosuits, he wore a simple jumpsuit, his hands stained with grease, a clear sign of someone who preferred working on machines rather than talking about them. As he stepped forward to unveil his entry, the Dauntless, a murmur of laughter spread through the gathered aliens. Before them stood a vessel that, at first glance, looked unimpressive, smaller than the competitors' ships, lacking decorative plating, and without the imposing size or weaponry that most expected. The ship had a rugged, utilitarian design, built with efficiency rather than aesthetics in mind. The polished arrogance of the alien engineers turned into open mockery. "Is this a joke?" A reptilian engineer from the Drakesir Dominion scoffed, his emerald eyes gleaming with amusement. Did the humans run out of resources to build a real ship? Perhaps they believe scrap metal is a form of advanced technology, another alien chuckled, adjusting the glowing monocle over his cybernetic eye. Even the event organizers looked uncomfortable, as if regretting their decision to allow Earth's participation. The Galactic Union had only recently accepted humanity into its ranks, and many believed they were still too young, too inexperienced to compete with civilizations that had mastered space travel long before humans had even discovered electricity. Ethan, however, remained unfazed. He had expected the laughter, the arrogance, the dismissive stares. He had seen it all before. He ran a hand along the hull of the Dauntless, feeling the cool metal beneath his fingers. The ship was more than just a machine. It was a statement. It represented something aliens could not yet understand. They saw weakness in simplicity, mistaking efficiency for inferiority. But Ethan knew better. He had built something entirely new, something they had never encountered before. He took a slow breath, then turned to face the gathered engineers, his expression unreadable. "The competition hasn't even started," he said, his voice carrying through the hall. "Let's see who's laughing when the trials begin." The first challenge was a test of speed and maneuverability, a course designed to push the limits of even the most advanced propulsion systems. Alien ships lined up at the starting point, their sleek designs humming with power. Many were fitted with antimatter engines, quantum displacement drives, and gravity-assisted acceleration systems, each boasting incredible speeds. In contrast, the Dauntless sat at the edge of the platform, looking almost underwhelming, as if it didn't belong there. The countdown began. 3, 2, 1. The race started, and the alien ships surged forward, their engines leaving behind trails of energy. The crowd cheered as the fastest ships took the lead, their pilots displaying masterful control over their craft. Then, something happened that no one expected. The dauntless move.it didn't just accelerate, it vanished from its starting position, appearing hundreds of meters ahead in an instant. The gathered audience fell into stunned silence as the human vessel twisted through the course with inhuman precision, darting through obstacles as if they weren't even there. Alien pilots struggled to react, their ships straining to keep up, but the Dauntless danced through the course as if physics itself had bent to its will. Within seconds, it reached the finish line, stopping so suddenly that the motion seemed almost unnatural. The sensors confirmed it. Ethan Carter's ship had won, breaking every known speed record in Galactic Union history. The silence that followed was deafening. The same engineers who had laughed now stared in disbelief. Some frantically checked their datapads, searching for an explanation. How had the human ship moved so fast? What kind of propulsion system allowed for such acceleration? Without. Ethan stepped forward, watching their confusion with quiet amusement. He had spent years perfecting the graviton field propulsion system, an entirely new way of moving through space, utilizing controlled distortions in gravity itself. Unlike traditional engines, which relied on fuel-based thrust, the Dauntless manipulated the fundamental forces of the universe, allowing for unparalleled speed and agility. The aliens had assumed humans were primitive because they did not build ships the way everyone else did. What they failed to realize was that humanity was not interested in following outdated rules. They were here to rewrite them. As the next trial loomed, a combat simulation designed to test defensive and offensive capabilities, the laughter was gone. In its place was unease, uncertainty, and, for the first time, a hint of fear. The aliens had underestimated Earth's engineers. Now, they would have to face the consequences. Ethan stepped onto the platform, his expression calm, his words carrying an edge of quiet confidence. "Still think we don't belong here?" No one responded. For the first time, the galaxy had started to take humanity seriously. The massive hall of Veltrax Prime's engineering arena was filled with the hum of alien voices, each speaking in different tongues, but all carrying the same tone: mockery. The Galactic Engineering Summit was in full swing, with the most advanced civilizations showcasing their finest ships. Towering vessels with sleek, futuristic designs stood as proof of centuries of engineering mastery. Yet, despite all the excitement, a particular ship had become the center of unwanted attention: the Dauntless, Earth's entry into the competition. Unlike the other ships, it lacked the intricate glowing circuits, the aggressive, battle-hardened armor, or the massive energy cores that powered some of the most powerful fleets in the galaxy. Instead, it was compact, simple, and strangely unremarkable. The moment it was unveiled, the hall erupted with laughter. Alien engineers from dominant species gathered around, pointing at the human ship with expressions of disbelief. Some shook their heads, some whispered among themselves, while others outright laughed at what they called a glorified cargo shuttle. Ethan Carter, the lone human representative, stood beside his creation with arms crossed, his face impassive as wave after wave of ridicule washed over him. A Drakesir war engineer, a towering reptilian with dark emerald scales, approached with an amused grin, his voice dripping with condescension. "Is this really the best humanity has to offer?" he sneered, running a clawed hand over the Dauntless's unpolished metallic exterior. "I've seen mining drones with better designs. Does it even have a functional warp core, or did you bring a museum relic for display?" The gathered engineers erupted in another round of laughter, some doubling over as they tried to contain their amusement. Ethan simply watched, his expression unreadable. Another alien, a thin, four-eyed being from the Vareth Consortium, adjusted his glowing monocle, studying the Dauntless with exaggerated curiosity. "Surely this must be some kind of mistake," he said, tapping a slender metallic finger against his temple as his neural implants scanned the ship's structure. "The data suggests no advanced shielding, no quantum displacement engines, and the hull composition is—" he paused before scoffing. "Titanium alloy? How adorable. Did you forget that energy weapons can slice through that like paper?" The laughter grew even louder. Ethan remained still, letting them have their moment. He knew this would happen. The galaxy was full of arrogant civilizations that had spent thousands of years refining their ships, believing their way was the only way. They had grown comfortable, complacent, trapped in their own technological traditions. They judged superiority by size, by brute strength, by extravagant energy consumption. They had no idea what true efficiency looked like. A group of reporters from the Interstellar News Network hovered nearby, their drones recording every second of the humiliating spectacle. A blue-skinned journalist floated forward, her sleek cybernetic lenses zooming in on Ethan's face. "Dr. Carter," she said, suppressing a smirk, "many are wondering, why did humanity send this?" She gestured toward the Dauntless, barely containing her amusement. "Surely Earth has better ships?" Ethan turned his head slowly, meeting her gaze. "We didn't come here to impress people with shiny toys," he said simply. "We came to win." His words caused another burst of laughter, But this time, there was an undertone of irritation among some of the competitors. Winning was out of the question for humanity, at least. That's what they all thought. The test trials were designed to push ships to their limits, measuring speed, maneuverability, combat effectiveness, and adaptability. The Drakesir, the Varith, the Zorvian Ascendancy, and a dozen other civilizations had entered ships that boasted cutting-edge technology, some powered by miniature black holes, others capable of phase shifting through enemy fire. The idea that a primitive human ship could compete against them was laughable. A tall, insectoid being from the Kelvar Empire clicked its mandibles together, stepping forward to address Ethan. "You amuse us, human," it chittered in a voice that sounded like rustling leaves. But soon, amusement will turn to embarrassment. The trials begin shortly. When your ship fails, will you admit that Earth was never meant to compete on the galactic stage? Ethan's gaze remained steady. "Let's find out," he said, his voice devoid of fear. The announcement chime echoed through the hall, signaling the start of the first test, speed and maneuverability trials. Pilots and engineers moved toward their respective ships, preparing for the challenge. The laughter had faded now, replaced with the anticipation of a public humiliation. They weren't just expecting the Dauntless to lose, they were expecting it to fail spectacularly. As Ethan walked toward his ship, he could still hear the whispers, the mocking bets being placed on how long the Dauntless would last before breaking down. He ignored them. His hands moved effortlessly across the controls, running the final checks. The ship hummed to life, a soft vibration beneath his fingertips, a familiar, comforting sensation. The aliens had no idea what was coming. They thought they had already won. But soon, they would learn just how wrong they were. The moment had arrived. The Galactic Engineering Summit had drawn thousands of spectators from every corner of the universe, each eager to witness the most advanced starships in existence prove their worth. The grand stadium was filled with a sea of alien engineers, pilots, and high-ranking officials, all gathered to witness the speed and maneuverability trials, the first of many challenges that would determine the most advanced engineering civilization in the galaxy. The massive digital display flickered to life, showcasing the competitors, the towering Zorvian dreadnought, equipped with a quantum displacement drive, the Drakesir Dominion's Razorwing, its sleek design optimized for atmospheric and deep space maneuvering, the Kelvar Empire's Shroud class vessel, capable of phase shifting through obstacles. And then there was the dauntless Earth's entry, standing at the edge of the launch platform, small, unassuming, and utterly unremarkable compared to the giants beside it. The mockery from earlier had not faded. Even as the countdown began, engineers and pilots whispered among themselves, still amused by the idea that a human-built ship could compete. "Will it even make it past the first marker?" sneered a Varith scientist, his cybernetic eyes scanning the Dauntless with clear disdain. A reptilian Drakesir pilot chuckled, flexing his talons against the control panel of his own ship. "I hope it doesn't explode on launch. That would be unfortunate." More laughter followed, but in the control room of the Dauntless, Ethan Carter remained calm. His fingers moved effortlessly over the controls, his expression unreadable as he completed the final pre-flight checks. Outside, the shimmering force fields that marked the race course came alive, displaying the twisting, near-impossible maneuvering gauntlet that awaited the competitors. Floating asteroids, sudden gravity wells, unpredictable energy bursts, only the fastest and most agile ships could hope to survive the challenge. It was a course designed to eliminate the weak, to separate true engineering mastery from overconfidence. The countdown began. 3, 2, 1, the ships launched. A shockwave rippled through the stadium as the alien vessels surged forward, their engines roaring with power. The Drakesir Razorwing shot ahead first, a blur of green plasma trails cutting through space. The Zorvian dreadnought, despite its massive size, accelerated with a smoothness that defied physics, while the Kelvar Shroud blinked in and out of existence, shifting between dimensions with eerie precision. The crowd cheered, their attention locked on the titans of technology. But then, something happened that none of them expected. The Dauntless vanished. It was not a jump. It was not a warp. It was something else entirely. One moment, it was on the starting line, and the next, it was far ahead of the pack, twisting through the obstacles as if shock as his sensors struggled to lock onto the human vessel. The Kelvar phase ship, designed to be untouchable, found itself outmaneuvered at every turn. The Zorvian dreadnought, armed with predictive AI steering, could not anticipate the Dauntless's movements. It was as if the ship was moving in ways that should not be possible. The crowd, once laughing, fell into stunned silence. I in the control booths. Engineers frantically scanned their datapads, trying to make sense of what they were seeing. "That's not possible," muttered a Varith scientist, his voice shaking. "No known propulsion system can." He stopped, eyes wide, as the Dauntless spun through a collapsing gravity field, accelerating instead of slowing down. The ship had no visible thrusters firing, no warp distortions, no signs of the brute force propulsion that the galaxy had relied on for millennia. What had Earth built? Ethan smirked inside his cockpit. The graviton field propulsion system was his masterpiece, a revolutionary way of manipulating gravity itself. Instead of pushing against space, the Dauntless simply moved through it, flowing like a liquid rather than fighting the forces around it. There was no need for traditional thrusters, no need for energy-expensive jumps. It was pure efficiency, something the galaxy had never seen before. The final stretch approached. The last obstacle was a hyperspeed gauntlet, a section of space where ships had to navigate at maximum velocity through a maze of shifting energy beams. The Drakesir, Kelvar, and Zorvian ships pushed forward with all their power, their pilots abandoning caution in an attempt to close the gap. But it was useless. The Dauntless crossed the finish line first. Silence. The massive digital scoreboard flashed the results, and with it, for a long moment, no one spoke. Then, the murmurs started, confused, shocked, and finally, fearful. The same aliens who had laughed at Ethan Carter now stared at him with wide, uncertain eyes. This wasn't just an upset. This wasn't just an unexpected win. This was something dangerous. The Galactic Union had always considered humans as newcomers, weaker, less advanced. But today, they had just watched a human ship outperform their greatest engineering marvels with ease. Today, they had seen something that should not have been possible. And the worst part? This was just the first test. Ethan stepped out of the Dauntless, meeting the stunned gazes of the gathered engineers. He could see it in their faces, the realization that the rules of engineering had just changed. He smiled slightly and spoke just loud enough for them to hear. "You were saying something about Earth not belonging here?" No one laughed this time. The silence in the Galactic Engineering Summit was unnatural. Just moments ago, the arena had been filled with laughter, mockery, and the overconfidence of the galaxy's most advanced civilizations. But now, after the first trial, everything had changed. The Dauntless, a simple, unassuming human vessel, had not only competed, it had dominated. The most advanced ships, the pride of empires that had ruled the stars for centuries, had been left struggling in its wake. The engineers and pilots who had mocked its design now stood frozen, their expressions ranging from disbelief to growing fear. Ethan Carter walked through the hangar, ignoring the dozens of eyes following his every move. He could feel the weight of their unspoken questions. What kind of propulsion system was that? How did it move so efficiently? How did it react faster than AI-controlled ships? No one had an answer, because what they had witnessed should not have been possible. Alien engineers, their pride wounded, tried to explain it away. Some claimed it was luck, others whispered that it must have been some hidden, illegal technology. The Kelvar pilot, whose phase-shifting vessel had been humiliated, hissed through clenched mandibles, "There must be a trick. No primitive species could develop something superior to us." Ethan smirked, but said nothing. Let them wonder. Let them fear. As he reached the Dauntless, a group of high-ranking officials from the Galactic Union approached. At their center stood Counselor Virek, a cold-eyed Zorvian with a metallic exoskeleton and a gaze like sharpened steel. His voice was calm, but the tension in his posture was unmistakable. "Dr. Carter, we require a full technical analysis of your ship. For security purposes." The words were polite, but Ethan could hear the undercurrent of demand in them. The galaxy had just realized something terrifying. Humanity had developed technology they did not understand. And that was unacceptable. Ethan raised an eyebrow, pretending to consider it. Security purposes? Or is it that your top engineers can't figure out how we did it? He could see the subtle twitch in Virek's jaw. He had hit the nerve he wanted. Around them, dozens of scientists, pilots, and officials waited for his response, their minds racing with possibilities. The truth was, they could analyze the Dauntless for centuries, and they still wouldn't understand its secret. Because what powered the ship wasn't just technology, it was an idea. The galaxy had spent millennia perfecting bigger, stronger, more powerful engines, obsessed with raw speed and force. But humanity? Humanity had learned to think differently. Instead of fighting against the forces of space, the Dauntless flowed with them. Its graviton field propulsion system didn't push against gravity, it became part of it, bending space in ways no alien civilization had ever considered. To them, it looked like impossible movement. To Ethan, it was simply the next step in evolution. Virek narrowed his eyes. The Galactic Union does not tolerate technological secrecy. If your ship contains forbidden advancements, it must be reviewed. Around them, tension thickened. Other competitors watched closely, waiting for Ethan's response. This wasn't just about a race anymore. This was about control. If the galaxy couldn't understand human technology, they would try to take it. Ethan smiled, leaning casually against the Dauntless's hull. "Tell me something, counselor," he said, his voice calm. "If I had lost the race, would you still be asking for a full analysis?" Virek hesitated for half a second. It was enough. The silence was his answer. The crowd felt it too. This was not about regulations. This was fear disguised as authority. The Galactic Union had never expected humanity to be more than a minor player in the universe. But now, they didn't know what Earth was truly capable of. A murmur spread through the hangar. Other species, those who had been overlooked and overshadowed for centuries, were watching carefully. If humans had found a way to challenge the dominant powers of the galaxy, then what else could they do? The balance of power was shifting, and everyone knew it. Ethan exhaled, shaking his head. "I'll tell you what, counselor. If you want to understand human engineering, you can wait for the next trial." He tapped the hull of the Dauntless. "Because we're just getting started." Virek's expression darkened, but he said nothing. He knew forcing the issue now would only make things worse. The Union had expected a quick, humiliating defeat for humanity. Instead, they'd been handed a problem they didn't know how to solve. ASC officials left. The engineers from the other species remained, whispering among themselves. Some looked frustrated. Others, curious. A few, intrigued. Ethan could see the gears turning in their minds. The Dauntless wasn't just a ship. It was proof that the galaxy had been wrong about humans. And if humanity could build something this revolutionary, then what else were they hiding? As the next trial loomed, one thing was certain: the galaxy would never underestimate Earth. The air inside the Galactic Engineering Summit was thick with tension. What had started as a mere formality, a showcase of the galaxy's most advanced ships, had turned into something much greater. The Dauntless, humanity's unassuming entry, had stunned the entire crowd by outmaneuvering and outpacing the finest vessels from the most powerful civilizations. The laughter and mockery from earlier had disappeared, replaced by cautious whispers and uneasy glances. Humanity had done what no one thought possible. As Ethan Carter stood beside his ship, he could feel the weight of 1,000 alien eyes on him. Some were filled with disbelief, others with curiosity, and a few with growing fear. The Galactic Union had always viewed Earth as a minor player, a primitive species that had only recently joined the interstellar community. But after the Dauntless's shocking victory, that illusion had shattered. Now, they were no longer just another species. Now, they were a threat. The second trial was about to begin. This was not just about speed, it was a combat simulation, a test of maneuverability, firepower, and endurance. The ships would be placed in a simulated battlefield where they had to evade attacks, neutralize threats, and survive against increasingly difficult odds. The goal was simple: last as long as possible. Most expected the Zorvian dreadnought to dominate, with its advanced shields and high-yield plasma cannons. Others placed their bets on the Kelvar Shroud-class vessel, capable of phasing through enemy fire. But the Dauntless? No one believed it would last more than a few minutes. Ethan stepped into the cockpit, his hands moving across the controls with practiced ease. He knew what they thought. They still didn't understand the secret of the Dauntless, and that was fine. He wasn't here to explain himself. He was here to win. The countdown began. 3, 2, 1. The battlefield came to life. Simulated enemy warships appeared in the arena, each programmed to seek and destroy the competing ships. The first wave was small and predictable, a simple test of targeting systems and reaction time. The Zorvian dreadnought opened fire immediately, its plasma turrets tearing through the simulated enemies with brutal efficiency. The Kelvar phased through incoming attacks, striking from unexpected angles. The Draxer Razorwing moved with lethal grace, its rapid-fire cannons making quick work of its targets. And then there was the Dauntless. Instead of engaging directly, it vanished again, moving in a way that defied conventional physics. It slipped between enemy ships, twisting and darting with unreal precision, avoiding every shot as if it could predict the future. Alien spectators leaned forward, eyes narrowing as they tried to understand what they were seeing. How is it doing that? A Kelvar technician muttered, his claws tightening around the railing. No ship should move like that, whispered a Zorvian strategist. But it did. As the simulation intensified, the alien ships began to struggle. The second wave of enemy vessels targeted weaknesses, adapting to each ship's tactics. The Zorvian dreadnought's heavy armor meant it couldn't dodge fast enough. The Kelvar's phase-shifting ability required massive energy, depleting its reserves too quickly. The Draxir Razorwing, despite its speed, lacked the endurance to last much longer. One by one, they started falling behind. But the Dauntless? It was untouchable. It weaved through enemy fire, dodging with a precision that seemed almost unnatural. While the other ships struggled to keep up, Ethan's vessel danced through the battlefield as if it had already seen the fight before it even started. It didn't just react to threats, it anticipated them. And then, without warning, it struck back. The Dauntless unleashed a single, precise shot, not at the enemy ships, but at a critical weak point in the battlefield simulation itself. The explosion triggered a chain reaction, wiping out dozens of enemies in a fraction of a second. Gasps echoed through the arena. That move had been impossible to predict, yet Ethan had seen it from the start. The scoreboard flashed. Final results. 1. Place the Dauntless Humanity survived entire simulation. 2. In place Kelvar Shroud class, eliminated at 72% completion. 3. Place Zorvian Dreadnought, eliminated at 65% completion. The entire arena fell into silence. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then, slowly, the realization sank in. Humanity hadn't just competed. They hadn't just survived. They had won. Again. He could see it in their faces, the shift in perception, the crumbling of old prejudices. They had laughed at humanity, dismissed them as inferior, assumed Earth's technology was decades behind the rest of the galaxy. But now they understood. Now they saw humanity not as weaklings, but as equals. Perhaps even more than that. Counselor Virek, the same Zorvian official who had demanded an inspection of the Dauntless, now stood in stunned silence. His authority, his assumptions, had been shaken to the core. Ethan met his gaze and smirked. Still think Earth doesn't belong here? Virek said nothing. The Galactic Union had just learned a painful truth. Humanity was not to be underestimated. They had laughed at Earth once. They would never make that mistake again.